Hello and welcome back to the Pride of All Europe podcast, brought to you by All for United. I'm joined by a brilliant group of guests. So, boys, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. So much better for seeing Mark, especially with his outfit today.
He's in for a very rough half-hour, isn't he?
Comments, please, below. Gold chain and pink T-shirt. Please let me know what you think, people.
I've been looking forward to that.
I can't wait to see the comments. Thanks, Neil.
Me neither. But we've got a pretty exciting day of Euros action to look back on, and another exciting day to look forward on as well today. So we'll start from probably the biggest game in terms of our perspective yesterday. It was Wales getting a massive 2-0 win over pre-tournament underdogs Turkey, who have really not proved to be much at all, have they? So, Mark, to start with, how good is this win going to be for the Welsh team's confidence?
Yeah, huge. I think, you know this, but your second games are always the very pivotal one, aren't they? They make or break. And I think that obviously that group now really starting to take shape of who's probably going to qualify. And this isn't me being difficult about Wales. I want to see them do well, but I can't remember the last time they really qualified out the group at the preliminary stages. So I think that this would be massive. They've got some really good players. Gareth Bale obviously being a massive one. Aaron Ramsey scored yesterday and it still is a great player. Daniel James seems to be absolutely firing on all cylinders, isn't he, really? And you kind of wish that we would get that kind of return for United. But yeah, it would do massive for their confidence. And honestly, as I'm patriotic, obviously want England to win, but I like to see Wales, Scotland, everyone else do well. So I hope they get through.
It's interesting. It's caused a bit of a debate on social media as well. I'm interested to get your opinions on this, Neil. I think you'd be very opinionated on it. Obviously, Mark's saying that he wants Wales to do well. They are a home nation. I can't imagine the Welsh would reciprocate that feeling to the English. So what are your thoughts on supporting the home nations at these competitions?
I support one home nation. That's it. I think Alan will know the answer to this. I support one home nation. I've got a Scottish girlfriend that I've been with for years. I wound her up big time the other day. I said, Scotland shared 2 goals against the Czechs. And she said, we got a 1-1 draw. I said, no, lost 2-0. So that was a good start to my week. I'm not that bothered about the Welsh. I think they've actually got quite a good open draw in there, if they get through. But it doesn't bother me whether they're in, whether they're out. I'm more interested in just England, and that's it. Start and finish reading. I hope we absolutely crush Scotland tomorrow night. And then I'll be watching it with my girlfriend. So that'll be me sleeping on the sofa with a bit of luck.
Well, going back to the game then, Neil, I'll ask you, having watched the game, were you impressed by this Wales side? To beat such a solid Turkey team? Yeah,
well, I mean, all this talk about Turkey being the underdogs, I think if half the Turkish side walked down the street, I don't think we'd recognise them as footballers. They look more like something out of Murderer's Row. But I thought Wales played really well. I think that some of the coverage about Bale is a bit over the top. Robbie Savage says from Real Madrid to Juventus. Well, Ramsey's hardly had a kick for Juventus, and Bale's not been there for a year. And when he's been there, he's hardly had a kick. Thought Dan James was excellent. Clearly enjoying life in the Welsh side. Maybe he's playing with a bit less pressure on his shoulders. Defensively, they look pretty good. Couple of scares, but yeah, they're a decent side. The spine of the side is pretty decent. So I imagine they'll go through from the next round because I think the draw is very favourable for them. Because I can't see Russia, Finland, or Denmark getting anything out of the Welsh. I mean, it's terrible what's happened to the Finns, to the Danes, but I just think they probably just want to get home with the terrible situation with Eriksson. Denmark, clearly, I don't think, if I was a player in that squad, I would find it very difficult to play.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll come to you next, Alan. I'm still on the conversation of Wales. Was there anyone that stood out for you in that Welsh team? I thought Dan James had a very good game. I think that's 2 very good games he's had now.
I thought Dan James was terrific.
Yeah, absolutely. But Alan, is there anyone in particular that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think just like the lads have said, I think James did okay. He showed glimpses of quality. We know he's electric, and if he gets a bit of space, he can bomb into that space, and he's it's just sometimes some of his decision making and some of his final stuff that he does just needs to be tweaked and improved a little bit. Pace in football can always cause problems, and he's got that. So if he can work on that side of his game, where he can sort of nip some decent crosses in, or he can get that quality when needed, he's still got potential. When he first arrived at United, of course, he was doing really well, and he hit the ground running. And then, unfortunately, I think through that almost like that honeymoon spell, he kind of dipped in form a little bit, didn't he, and found it difficult to get in. So going into the Welsh national side, and I think finding that little bit of freedom for himself, where the manager's probably said to him, just go and enjoy it and get on the ball and attack the players. I think that you sometimes see that difference in club to international football, where a lot of players can just play with the handbrake off sometimes and go and enjoy themselves. So I was impressed with Dan James. Bale's always got a bit of star quality, hasn't he, about him? He's been a top player for a lot of years now, so he's always dangerous and can cause problems. So they've got that. But the one thing that the Welsh have got is they seem to have a really good team spirit, and I think that counts for a lot as well in tournament football. What one concern I have about him is they just seem to celebrate. I don't know what the expectations are of the Welsh team, but it seems to me as though the expectations are just getting out of the group. And they celebrated for fun yesterday, didn't they? Which it was a brilliant achievement what they've done. So we'll just have to see if they can go any further now. If they get a reasonable draw in the sort of the second stage, let's see if they can bypass that. But I think anything that they do after that is going to be a bonus, and I think the expectations are set at that as well.
Yeah, fair enough. It does, sort of leave you wondering where they expect themselves to get, especially after their success in 2016 when they got to the semi-finals. Before we move on to Turkey, I'll bring up a comment from Connor. Good to have you on, mate. But disappointed no one would mention Connor Roberts. Obviously, scored the second goal, probably the biggest moment in his career. His namesake is obviously a contributor for United. So just everyone in the comments, say well done, Connor, for being called Connor, and then we can move on.
One of our own.
Shouldn't we thank Connor's parents for calling him Connor? It's actually nothing to do with our Connor Roberts, is it?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. Well done, Mr. and Mrs. Roberts, for
there you go.
Connor.
Yeah, well done.
But anyway, moving on to the Turks, because I wanted to talk about them because they really have disappointed in this competition. There's a lot of even experts. It wasn't just sort of Twitter pundits that were saying that they do well. There was a lot of experts saying it. And I think you look at their team as well and the calibre of teams that they play for. They've got two players that have just won the league with Lille. They've got Leicester starting centre-back. They've got Juventus centre-back. They've got Çalhanoğlu, who's starting for AC Milan as well. These are high-calibre players. So, Mark, what do you think's gone wrong for them at this tournament?
For who? Sorry, you cut out for me.
For Turkey, sorry.
Turkey, yeah. I mean, they were. You're right. They were very much underdogs, really, and I think they could have been one to watch. But I think I don't know. They're not really a team that has necessarily been successful, and they might have kind of got sort of sucked into people talking about them being so talented and players coming through. So perhaps that's not really sort of bode well for them, and they haven't had a good start. I think they're probably pretty much done and dusted potentially, and it's just not worked out for them. Look, you can't. It's very difficult to make a call on these things. I can't imagine in the last Euros anyone said Portugal really. They weren't one of the favourites, and yet they sort of pulled through and did the right thing and got there. So, lots of teams talking about Spain. They could have come in, obviously a very bizarre squad, but could have played the tiki-taka football that they want to play. Tiki-taka, sorry. And it's not worked out for them in the first game. So it's very difficult to call these things, and sometimes you have to grab things by the scruff of the neck, and sometimes you need a bit of luck on your side. We weren't particularly good against Croatia from an England perspective, and yet we managed to bag a goal and we're now 3 points clear. So, or at least 3 points on the board. So it's really, it's what happens on the day, and unfortunately for Turkey, they've just not performed like people would have hoped.
Yeah, definitely. I'll pass it over to you, Neil, because obviously I know you're not too impressed by them. Do you think that they've underperformed particularly, or do you think they're sort of a victim of the hype that people put on them at the start of the tournament?
yes, I still think in some respects they're paying for. I mean, they had a spectacular World Cup. I think 2 or 3 World Cups ago, and they still seem to be sort of living off that. But they haven't really done much since that World Cup. And yeah, you're right. When you look at some of the players and the clubs they play for, and the so-called pedigree, I know Alan Shearer. I know he was a lot dearer back in the day, but I think he was one of the pundits that went with Turkey as well. And they just, I mean, this is the issue that you've got with Wales. I mean, what have they actually beaten? Are Turkey really that bad, or are Wales that good? I mean, Turkey just, I mean, the last 10 minutes, you thought 2 or 3 of them were going to get sent off. They completely lost their heads, and they haven't impressed me for some time. Not that I've watched a lot of Turkish football, to be honest. But I just think they're living off the past in some respects. There's no team I've seen that scares me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll probably agree with you there. Alan, just to round us off on this game then, are you fully expecting Wales to qualify now? I think it's pretty much, well, they obviously are going to qualify, sorry. But how far do you think they can go in this tournament, having seen them play twice now?
Yeah, I think like I said in the earlier sort of part, I think that getting out of the group and has kind of like met the expectations that they wanted to do. I think they saw the Turkey game as just like a sort of a straight shootout, really, didn't they? After the best team in the group, the Italians, who are looking really good at the moment. They've seen Turkey off quite comfortably, didn't they, in the first game? And then I thought Wales, like getting that point against the Swiss, I think that boosted maybe their confidence a little bit coming into the game yesterday. So for Wales to overcome that, I know it's difficult sometimes to go on form in tournament football, but I think the Welsh lads yesterday stepped up and they just seemed to want it a little bit more than the Turkish lads. So they've done the nation proud, haven't they, by getting out of the group and hopefully moving on to the next stage. So it all depends who they can draw now and sort of set their tactics and their strategies to see if they can bypass and keep going further in the tournament. But I think in these sort of early clutch of opening group games, we're seeing some good play, aren't we? Some good sides, and at the moment in time, the bookies are never wrong, are they? I think Wales will still be well down the price in order to win the Euros. They're probably like one of the outsiders of the lot, so that sort of kind of tells you where they will be sitting.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we'll move on to the other big game in that group. It was Italy beating Switzerland 3-0. Now, we spoke about this on the show yesterday. We're expecting this game to be pretty close, and it was really anything but. So now that we're 2 games in, Mark, there was still a couple of question marks over Italy going into this game, but the way they dispatched Switzerland yesterday, are you taking them as one of the favourites now?
Yeah, I said a few weeks ago, and you'll have to believe me on this, that they probably are one of the dark horses, and I think they've showed that. I mean, 2-3-0 wins against Switzerland and Turkey, both no mugs, and obviously Turkey to maybe get somewhere, and they've dispatched them really, really well. So I think. I mean, I'm not sure if I'd entirely agree with Neil. I think there are a couple of teams that I wouldn't like to come up against. I think obviously Portugal, France, the usual suspects, and Italy. I think that they look good. I think I really rate Mancini as a manager. I thought that was one of the best things that Man City did, bringing him in order to win their first title. So I think he's a wonderful, wonderful manager. And they've got a great team. I think Bale looks exciting. Who was the defensive midfielder that everyone was raving about?
Locatelli.
Yeah, he looked brilliant. Obviously, I know that we've been linked with him today, or at least there was some tweets going out about trying to buy him and whatever. And I think that they've got from Italian teams, they've over time they've always been very solid at the back. And it's very difficult to break them down. And they've also got some very attacking flair players in their team that are scoring goals. So I think if anybody comes up against them, I think you'd be silly to write them off.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll bring it to you, Neil, because you said earlier you've not seen anyone that's really worrying you so far. So are you not so impressed by Italy?
Oh no, I had a bet on Italy about 2 months ago to get to the semi-finals. They've been on a fantastic run. I don't think they've conceded a goal now in like 11 games. They've scored 30 goals without anybody scoring against them. So you always know with the Italians, they're always going to be great defensively. I mean, the keeper looks top draw. Locatelli, I mean, that pass for the first goal was just unbelievable pass that was. And to follow it in the way he did, you know, you don't see a lot of that from sort of midfield players these days, pinging the ball out like he did and then just following one in. Yeah, I've had a cheeky bet on them to get to the semi-finals because they're a great, usually they're a great tournament team. And as Mark said, defensively, absolutely excellent. You can't. They've got flair all over the pitch. Mancini's doing an absolutely magnificent job with them. It's a fantastic anthem as well, to be honest, as well. So they got a lot going for them. But I enjoy watching the Italians play. I've always enjoyed Italian football. And I think they've got a really, really good squad as well. I think they've got a squad with some depth by the look of it after the first 2 games. And they absolutely destroyed Switzerland. You know, it was all over at this game. You knew after 10 minutes who was going to win this game. And Switzerland looked, I don't know, are they that bad and Italy that good? You know, we sort of find stuff out after the second games, and Italy have cruised through now. But Italy are a big, big danger. And I'd say Italy and France are the 2 teams that if there's a team that I'm a small concern about, it's probably Italy and France. I disagree with Mark. Portugal, no. I think we beat Portugal, no problem.
Yeah, I wasn't too impressed with Portugal either the other day. But we'll finish off with you, Alan. You know, I'll ask a similar question to Neil. From what you've seen now, I know my criticism of Italy after the first game was there was no real sort of penetration in their play. They played in front of the Turkey back line, but they completely proved that wrong against Switzerland. So should England come up against Italy, would you be worried? Do you think we could get past them at a later stage?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else. It's about trying to get momentum, isn't it, in a tournament and try and improve and get better as you go. I know the Italians have got a fantastic record at the moment. I think they've not been beat for a number of games now, haven't they? I read something about this last night. So they're looking good. They've made a really positive start. They look a really, really passionate and positive outfit. You know, absolutely nearly in tears when the sort of singing the national anthem. You know, and Mancini seems to be, you know, they all seem to be really, really together and sort of ready for battle, the Italian lads. So yeah, so good start. But the thing with good starts is that it's got to be maintained, hasn't it? You know, it's no good starting off well and then dipping off. You'd rather maybe come through the other way, where start off a little bit cagey and get better as the tournament goes on. But as the lads have said, you know, they have to be taken seriously. They look a decent outfit, well drilled, as most Italian sides are. You know, they don't let a lot of goals in. And what I like about them as well, they seem to be a group of hard-working players. As soon as the ball gets lost, they're all sort of together trying to chase and get it back again so they can hold on to it and start playing again. So yeah, so from their first 2 games in the group stages, been very impressed with the Italians. So we'll just have to see now whether they can keep that momentum going and go really, really deep into the tournament.
Yeah, it's a brilliant point you made. Momentum is a massive thing, isn't it? I think, but starting off well is probably the best way to maintain it. We will briefly cover the final game of yesterday. Obviously, Russia beat Finland to stop Finland progressing after the second group stage game. I don't think it was a 1-0 win. It was a very good goal. I don't know if anyone has anything to really say about it. It just seemed a bit of a nothing game to me, really. No, we'll move on. We'll move on to today's game then.
Oh yeah.
So we've got some massive games coming up today. I think the first is Ukraine, North Macedonia, which is
massive.
Real.
Doesn't get any bigger than this.
But you know, that's second place in that group. Well, first place even isn't, you know, guaranteed, with the Netherlands and I believe Austria. Yeah, Austria in there as well. There's no real runaway leaders. The Netherlands struggled to get past Ukraine the other day. So Mark, how do you see that group finishing, should we say?
I think Netherlands are a strong team. I think no one's really talked about them, to be honest with you. I can't imagine Ukraine losing, maybe a draw against North Macedonia. I think the top two at the moment will probably be the ones that progress. And I think that Netherlands will more than likely, I think they've got a much stronger team. And I think they'll probably come top. But obviously that depends on their result as well, I suppose. But yeah, I can't see anything different to that. Obviously, today as well, Belgium. No one talks about Belgium. I've got a mate at work, colleague of mine, who is from Belgium, and he's very patriotic. He never wants to know anything about England or anything like this. And we always have a little bit of a few digs at each other. And they're a strong team, very strong team. And I think when we talk about teams like Italy and Portugal and France and Germany, you can never write off the Germans. No one's really spoken about Belgium. And, in the last World Cup, they got to the semis, didn't they? Lost against France. So I think that they could be very much one to watch as well. But yeah, as for Ukraine, North Macedonia, I think, to be honest, and this is no disrespect whatsoever, it's not going to have a bearing on the two that go through, I don't think.
Fair enough. Well, we're coming to Belgium soon, so we'll kick off more on them in a short while. But Neil, of Ukraine and North Macedonia, do you see either of those two finishing in the top two of their group?
Well, I think I'm going to Tesco's when that's on. I've got to be honest. That's. I mean, I'm on my own this afternoon, and even I can't. I'm struggling with that. So I've got to be honest. I don't care about that game. Ukraine will win.
Yeah, I think it's not a formality. Nothing is in this competition, but it's as good as one. Alan, do you see anything different from this game?
Similar to Mark and Neil, it's echo the thoughts. The Dutch got some decent players. The one criticism I have of the Dutch side is they always seem to sort of they do okay in tournaments, and they've always got almost like a habit of throwing a bad performance in. They don't seem to have that real grit and fire and almost like that sort of something that you need to get a tournament win over the line. In recent times, of course, I know they've had history, they've had experiences in the Euros, of course, going back. I think it was 1988, the Van Basten finish, which was unbelievable when they had a really top side. But I think since then, within tournament football, they've just got a habit of almost being a bit weak when they get to sort of the latter stages and throwing in a bad performance, which ultimately leads to the demise. So yeah, they'll get out the group. How far they'll go, maybe second stage, quarterfinals. Again, it all depends on whether they can find something a little bit extra.
Yeah, you brought me nicely onto the Netherlands squad then, because I wanted to ask you, Mark. It's an okay squad on paper. It's nothing sort of world beating. There's a couple of quality players in there, but are you expecting them to just carry on being a little bit underwhelming at major tournaments as they have been recently? Because I know that not a lot of people have predicted them to win or even do that well, but in my mind, that's probably for good reason. Looking at the team.
Yeah, you are right. I mean, they have been. Even since I think the final against Spain all those years ago in the World Cup, they haven't really pushed on from there. But they've got some very good players, and I think you'd kind of expect them to at least get out of the groups and probably get through to at least I don't know how many rounds there are, quarters or whatever. I think they should get to that. I think. Another limitation for them, really, I'm not sure I rate Frank de Boer. I thought he was good at Ajax. Obviously, didn't have a very good time at Crystal Palace, and maybe might not be the right man for them. But I feel that they should be getting a bit further. I think that they've got De Ligt, fantastic centre back, still young. I don't know if is. Memphis Depay, I didn't even watch their first game, if I'm brutally honest. Is he injured or is he on?
No, he played.
Okay, well he's a it's always nice to see ex-Man United players. He's a very good player. They've not quite got the team they once had. Van Persie, Van Nistelrooy, Van Basten, De Jong. But they've got players that can do a lot. Frankie De Jong, I highly rate him. I think they've got some really good instrumental players within their team that can cause problems. And I do expect them to probably get a bit further than that. You're probably right. I think everyone's hit the nail on the head. They probably will be a little underwhelming, but I think that they could possibly be one to watch as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Neil, I'll ask you the same sort of question. Do you expect Netherlands to do particularly well, or do you just think they're going to carry on being sort of mediocre as they have been in the last couple of tournaments?
I just get the impression with the Netherlands, they're just going to blow up at one point. They haven't looked particularly fantastic. Yes, they individually have got some decent players, but they seem to be in quite a weak group. They should get through. I was a bit, if you're a Dutch fan, the way they let Ukraine back into the game, you'd be a bit worried about the defence because they just capitulated and they got out of jail. But there's none of the teams in that group. You'd be worried about England coming against. Blooming hell. I just think that the Dutch might, they potentially, as you know, with the Dutch, they can implode. A bit like the French have done in the past, but they didn't look great. They should beat Austria. They should beat them 2-3. But they're no shakes.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll quickly touch on Belgium because I've been impressed by them. I'll come to you first, Alan. They're a very impressive 3-0 win in the first game. They've obviously got Lukaku, who's in the form of his life up front. They've still got De Bruyne to come back as well. So how far do you think they can go in this tournament? And what are you expecting from them today as well against Denmark? Oh, you're muted, mate.
Apologies. Yeah, so they should do really well. The Belgians got a lot of good players. Like you say, Lukaku started off well. It makes me laugh all over social media as soon as Lukaku starts doing well. Loads of United stuff. Did we get rid of him too early and things like that? But that's just the way it happens. You can never be guaranteed what players are going to do when they leave. So, but yeah, he started the tournament in decent shape, and I think the Belgians have got quite a good unit, some good experience. Obviously, De Bruyne will sort of come back into the fold, I think, as the tournament sort of progresses. So I'm expecting them to do really well and maybe threaten this. They certainly should be going quite far down the line. In relation to the game tonight, not too sure what frame of mind the Danes are in at the moment with the really, really tragic and sad incident that happened at the weekend. I think that's sort of really, really put a real dampener on the Danes and the Danish squad, and really, really sad to see that situation. It was awful. So I think that they're going to kick the ball out tonight. I think is it the 10th minute just to give that sort of bit of respect to Christian Eriksen, and I believe that he's going to have some like heart monitor fitted that may enable him to play again. I know I was reading earlier. I think Daley Blind's got one fitted apparently. It's allowed him to play a little bit more along his career a little bit. So it's all down to Christian Eriksen now and what he wants to do. But it was so tragic to see because he's such a top player. Hopefully they can get that back and see what happens tonight. See if they can find a result for him. But I think I'd probably fancy Belgium to turn the Danes over. Yeah,
I'll probably agree with you there. I'll come to you then, Mark. Obviously, you gave us your thoughts on Belgium earlier, so I'll ask you about Christian Eriksen and the Denmark team because how do they pick themselves back up and carry on performing? Do you expect them to really do anything after that? It must be hard.
Yeah. I'm sorry, mate. I probably jumped the gun a little bit earlier. I really rate the Belgium team. We talk about Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, and you're absolutely right, Alan. We had all those comments coming out about whether it was the right thing to sell him. It absolutely was the right thing to sell him. He didn't want to stay. I don't think he had a particularly great relationship with Ollie or whatever else. Doesn't matter. I don't think he fits the system. I still don't believe that he is that number 9 that Ollie is looking for, like Cavani. Okay, so it's rubbish, but it's an unfortunate start for Denmark. You know, I've always sort of quite liked Denmark and watching them. They're not always played the best football, but they've always had sort of, you know, one or two very good players. I really rate Christian Eriksen, and it's just an unfortunate circumstance. And I think that it showed after the game was restarted, really. And I can't. It's now just unfortunate that they're coming up against Belgium. And unfortunately, I think that will be them. I can't see anything than a Belgian win, in all honesty.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'll come to you then, Neil. I will warn you, this is going to be your final chance to take the mick out of Mark's T-shirt and chain combination. But aside from that, what are you expecting from Belgium for the rest of this competition?
Well, unlike Mark, Belgium are looking quite good. My issue with the Belgian side is their defenders. I mean, you've got one playing in Japan. You know, Vertonghen and Alderweireld look past it now. Boyata, he's about as much as centre half as I'm a catwalk model. I know Mark will step in there. I'll cross that one for you, Mark. See if you can edit in. Belgium, you know, with De Bruyne to come back, who's in my opinion best midfielder in the world at the moment. You know, he's been consistently brilliant for the last 2 or 3 years. I think he's playing today. I think the plan is to get him on the pitch at some point. So going forward, they're a magnificent side. If Martinez can get a tune out of someone like Hazard as well, then you never know, they could take this place by storm. But going back to my earlier point, I'd still fancy England against them because I'd fancy our forwards against their defence. But they are a decent side. They're still world rated number 1, I think. I don't know what that means. Well, I know what it means, but you know, I don't know how much credibility that holds. But they should win comfortably. You got to feel for the Danes. It's desperate. First game I ever saw at Wembley, England against Denmark, and Alan Simonsen. Alan might remember him. I don't think you two will, but Alan Simonsen played for Denmark, and at the time he was European Footballer of the Year. Hell of a player. There's one for the kids.
Yeah, we'll have to go and look that one up. But just before we finish, I'll get a prediction for all 3 games from you. I'll come to you first, Alan. What are you thinking for these 3?
I think Belgium will beat the Danes, so I'm going to go for 2-0 for that one. What else have we got? What else have we got? North Macedonia and
Ukraine.
Yeah, 0-0. And what's the second one today? My son Sam showing me all games. Netherlands and Austria. Let's go for I'll go for a 2-0 win for Holland in that game as well.
Fair enough, Mark.
I think 1-0 Ukraine. I don't think Ukraine are any mugs really, and I think North Macedonia are incredibly lucky to be there probably. Belgium, and I'm going to go 4-1 actually. I really feel that Denmark are going to be lacking a lot of belief after the first game, and that's just a very unfortunate thing. And I think Belgium are very strong, so I'm going to go 4-1. And Netherlands, Austria. I mean, you're absolutely right, Neil. Looking at their defence, then they weren't particularly great. They shouldn't have let in 2 against Ukraine, but they managed to get the winner. So I'm going to probably say 2-1 in that one.
Fair enough. Finally, Neil.
My prediction for the Macedonia game is, I've changed my mind. I'm going to Sainsbury's because it's a bit further away. And that means I'll be watching less of the game. But I think Shevchenko should play himself and he'll probably score twice. So I'm going for Ukraine to win 2-0. I think Belgium subconsciously might ease off against the Danes once they get in front. So I'm going Belgium 2-0 and I'm going 3-0 to Holland.
Fair enough. Some good predictions. We'll have to look back at the end of the day and see if anyone was right. But that brings us to an end of our show. Really hope you've enjoyed it. A massive thank you to this brilliant panel of guests. You've been brilliant in making my job a lot easier as well. Massive thank you to everyone who tuned in and commented. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll be back tomorrow with another Pride of All Europe podcast, looking back on today's games and obviously tomorrow's. But go on, what were you going to say, Mark?
I'm going to be hosting that one tomorrow. Just thought I'd plug
There you
that in there.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go. If you didn't need a reason to tune in, you've got one. So
I'm going to
have that.
Sainsbury's tomorrow then.
He might go through the rest of his colour palette of his wardrobe. That'll be exciting.
Oh, I'm
But,
tuning in. I might try and get on that show then.
Yeah, he'll give you a tutorial on how to do his eyebrows as well. But
Yeah.
until tomorrow, stay tuned to social media for any changes or anything. But massive thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.